Hello, you beautiful souls, and welcome to another week. Oh my God, I can't believe it's the first week of November. And today's daylight savings. I'm recording this on Sunday, November 2nd. And I just wanted to say that all of the 12 zodiac sign monthly astrology horoscopes are out for the Patreon members. So thank you so much for supporting that work. And just to be clear, they become available to the YouTube community at the start of the next season. So for those of y'all on YouTube, those horoscopes will become available at the beginning of Sagittarius season, which I believe is November 21st. But the Patreon members get first dibs. And I'm really proud of this month, I have to say, because I spent, I think, like 30 to 40 minutes on each sign. And I really focused on the most important transits. And then at the end, you get a special three-card tarot pull for each sign. So those are all up. And if you want to be a Patreon member, you can hit the description box down below. It's $10 a month. And you also, like, part of that $10 goes into funding my research, and hopefully by a certain time we'll get enough to so that I could hire editors to help me with this whole production. And also you can cancel at any time. There's no like commitment required. Like I'm not expecting y'all to commit to me for years, but it does help me with my energetic output and my capacity. And the Sunday service tier is 555 per month, and you fund this weekly astrology forecast for the YouTube community and also my research. So thank you so much to all the Patreon members for helping to fund my work. And it's just the law of reciprocity, right? It's Jupiter in Cancer. It's just this idea that when you pour into people's work, then you get abundance back. So, oh gosh, let's start with the recap, I guess. Oh my gosh. This is a big week, by the way. We're covering the forecast from November 3rd to the 9th, and we are working towards the energy climax of a full moon in Taurus. But I was trying to look for some happy news stories, and unfortunately, last week was, for me personally, just, and I think I might have even said this last week, just with this grand water trine. Water, like when you dump water on fire sign like me, it's just like, I feel very like sad. I feel very like this is my time of healing and catharsis and just being honest with my emotions. I'm in a 12th house season. Um, and so starting from October 25th, I mentioned that there would be a grand water trine until the middle of November because in Scorpio season, when the Sun, Mars, and Mercury were transiting through Scorpio, it was making trines to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces and a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. So that grand water trine is is going to bring up a lot of emotions. It's going to make people feel like overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, all this grief that's coming up to the surface. It's a great time to do healing, seeing a therapist, seeing a healer, crying. I've been crying like every single day, which is why my eyes are so puffy. I cried yesterday. I went to this fundraiser for Gaza last night, and it was like perfect use of a Pisces moon because it was poetry reading and singing and singers, and I got to see a couple of my friends, my comrades, and I literally cried so much that night. But it was like again, like this catharsis moment. Now, somebody asked me, do the astrological transits correspond to natural events? And the answer is yes. That's what astrology is. Astrology is the observation of celestial movements and their correlation to events on Earth. So when Neptune like re-entered Pisces in, I think, October 22nd, and that started forming the Grand Water Trine. We saw some hurricanes starting to ramp up. And so last week there was Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. It was a category 5. It looked like a very gnarly hurricane. However, what I noticed about a lot of videos that people were posting, and a couple of influencers were stuck in Jamaica. There were so many Americans in the comment section being shocked at how people in Jamaica were coming together and helping each other, like just strangers. And that is the difference between places like in the Caribbean and of the global South versus the West, where in the West we have, like specifically in the US, we have all the resources, we have all this money, but we lack community and the sense of community that literally can get you through anything is a grand water trine. That is the best use of a grand water trine. I think I mentioned this in all of the zodiac signs for the month of November, and which I'll share with you. I said in East Asian like astrology philosophy, water is the most powerful element. It's the most powerful element. Whereas in the West, fire like is the most, I think, revered element, right? Which fire is a masculine yang element. Water is a feminine yin element about receptivity and yin and surrendering. Fire is about getting after and taking action, right? And I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I think and I'm thinking of like the last Airbender where fire was like the evil group, right? Have you ever watched that? The live action one I love. There's so much like East Asian philosophy in that movie, in that series. But for us, water, like all of our dragons are water dragons, whereas like I know in a lot of other cultures, they like in Game of Thrones, for example, the dragons are fire breathers. So we use water as this symbol of also collectivist culture that water needs to flow. Like a lot of words that are associated with money, like income stream, right? Streams of income. Money is, I know a lot of people say this, but money is energy and it needs to flow. And there needs to be a reciprocal relationship. And the problem is 1% of the world's like people in power hoard all of the money and resources. It's not natural because again, these resources and money have to flow. So water reminds us that when you give to something, when you give to somebody in terms of like mutual aid is solidarity. It doesn't mean you're giving to poor. It doesn't mean I'm like a hierarchical system of like I'm giving to somebody who is not an equal footing. But solidarity is like, oh, in this season, you're not as financially well, so I'm going to help you understanding the law of reciprocity that I'm not like keeping a tab, right? But I understand that the energy will come back to me. And this is just like, this is something that in Asian culture that it's just understood. It's not something that we speak about. It's not something that we like necessarily talk about. But if you're ever going out to eat with like an Asian family, or I'll just speak for Koreans specifically. Like if you're going out and your aunties like fight over the bill, it's because like that is the highest form of reciprocity, and you know that it's going to come back to you. And that's really hard for me as like somebody who comes from that culture to then translate that to American culture where that reciprocity is not a thing because oftentimes that is taken advantage of. And sometimes it's like heartbreaking because I have to pull back on some of my like Asian ways because I don't necessarily want to teach Americans like, oh, this is how we do it in Asian culture. And now it's like your turn, you know? Anyway, I'm saying this because when I watch those TikTok videos of the Jamaicans helping each other after this like devastating hurricane where a lot of them couldn't even contact their own family. A lot of their homes are destroyed, but yet they're still helping people. And that is something that I feel US Americans specifically, especially if you're like not from a collectivist culture, we are severely lacking and that we deeply crave. And then that brings me to October 28th. This is when the RSF they like literally besieged El Fasher in Sudan. And the RSF, is it support? No, rapid, what is it? What does RSF stand for? It can't be Rapid Support Forces. RSF, Sudan. They are backed by the UAE and Rapid Support Forces. Okay, that's what I thought, but I was like, that sounds not what they actually do. So the UAE, which was created in the 70s by the US and Western countries, kind of like what they did with Israel. They backed this militia, the RSF, in committing a genocide in Sudan to steal the resources, more specifically gold. Like Dubai doesn't have any gold mines. Similar to how Israel is one of the biggest exporters of diamonds, but they don't have diamond mines in Israel. They're all in the Congo. So they just started these like they didn't just start this, but they started besieging Al-Fashir. And so on that day, a lot of people, for the first time, became aware of what's going on in the Sudan, which, by the way, this has been going on for years. Okay. The revolution happened in like 2019. And so for years, and they have been in a level 5 famine, forced famine for 2 years. And I thought this was interesting because I thought this was a manifestation of the Pluto in Aquarius trine Uranus in Gemini that's been active from July until now, until November. And the thing that you have to understand about trines is try to remove your like personal, like good or bad in astrology because trines can make good things happen and trines can also make bad things happen. And so Pluto in Aquarius is this era of revolution, right? And so is Uranus. But revolution goes both ways, both sides. It can be obviously like our collective liberation, which is the liberation of all oppressed people. But then the other side is the revolution of the people in power really like standing 10 toes down in their like genocidal campaign. So that trine has been not exact, but it's been from July to November when Uranus entered Gemini on July 7th. And then on that day that people started to become aware of what was going on, Mercury in Sagittarius was opposing Uranus retrograde in Gemini at 0 degrees. And so this is part of the Mercury retrograde story because Mercury right now is in its pre-shadow. And that when Mercury opposes Uranus, it is this like, oh my God, like this shock value of like, I didn't know this was going on. And I always say, like, I didn't know what was going on in Sudan 3 years ago. I knew about 2 years ago when I started to become like really aware of what was going on and how all of this is just like everything that's going on in the world, Sudan, Congo, Palestine, things that are happening in like Brooklyn, New York, the gentrification, Puerto Rico, Hawaii. like everything that is going on in the world is a symptom of the same thing, which is US imperialism, the military-industrial complex, all these hurricanes, the climate crisis. They're all like at the root of the same thing. So anytime you feel like overwhelmed, like all roads lead to the same machine. So I thought it was interesting that that was the moment or that was the news story of all these videos coming out of Sudan when people were like starting to talk about it. For this is like a good thing though, because it's bringing awareness. And then this bigger, like boycott of the UAE, Dubai, and all of these like the Emirates of like how they are complicit in the genocide of the Sudanese people. And it's so sad because the UAE is using the RSF, which are like black people, their own people, to murder the Sudanese people. It's so messed up on so many levels. It's like, I tend to do this a lot when I'm just like, it's so hard for like a highly sensitive person, which I'm like, we're all highly sensitive, I personally believe, when you choose not to disassociate or avoid, to just like grapple with all of this. Like, why? We could all be living in the utopia that is Earth and just ethically share and trade resources. Like, I just think colonization is like the most Neanderthal, low vibration, stupid ass thing that is like continuing into 2025. Like, are you that like not creative? And I know this has a lot to do with like generations and generations and centuries of colonization and like trauma and like, repeating these cycles. But I'm just like, could they not just be like, you have the gold, let's trade fairly? Just, I don't get it. I don't get why they have to. Oh, anyway, so that's what's going on in the Sudan. If you don't know anything if you want to educate yourself further, I posted not Bisan, BS on Blast. Her name is Sarah. But she reminds me a lot of Bisan because she has been talking about what's been going on in Sudan since 2023, and I followed them around the same time. But she is like such an amazing educator. There's other people that I follow who talk about Sudan, but please like look into this because this doesn't need to happen. Like things like this, all you have to do is boycott the UAE, don't go to Dubai, and really like check your consumption because it's Western consumption that is fueling these militias and just like the way that they are murdering these people too is just so cruel. Like I thought I've seen the worst of the worst, which I have through the genocide in Gaza, but like, oh my God. Anyway, I wanted to use this transit to speak up about what's going on in the Sudan. And then on October 29th, I was also privy to Three Eye Atlas, this interstellar object that's flying through our solar system right now. And I also thought that was very Mercury and Sagittarius opposing Uranus and Gemini. Um, if you listen to Stephanie and I's monthly forecast, Mercury and Sagittarius for me is a lot about like flight and like objects in the air, and also Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, like alien technology. The I stands for interstellar. So there's been three other interstellar objects in our history that have been discovered. Interstellar meaning it doesn't come from our solar system. It is not from our solar system. And because it's not of the bounds of the sun's orbit, and I'm teaching astrology right now, so like Mercury, Venus, the Earth, Mars, Jupiter, all these planets, Saturn, because they revolve around the sun, they're in the gravitational pull of the sun, they're in the orbit, and that's why they're in this solar system. This interstellar object is not being pulled by the orbit of by the gravitational pull of our sun. And on October 30th, it was going to be the closest to the sun that it has ever been, like ever. And yeah, I just think it's wild that this like it could be alien technology. I don't think NASA is really telling us the truth because why would they? I think personally, if I was to guess, it's like us from the future coming back into this timeline, like warning humanity, like, what the fuck are you doing? But I think it's funny that this is happening and nobody cares because an alien an alien going through our solar system seems more feasible and like people are more willing to accept an alien intervention than whatever the fuck is going on right now with our government. You know what I mean? Like to me, people are like, "Oh, well, I hope they invade. I hope they take us, whatever." But I think if you've never watched the movie Interstellar, you definitely should because this is giving that movie. Also, Hans Zimmer with that amazing soundtrack. On a side note, on a side tangent, that Hans Zimmer soundtracks for movies are just like they give me goosebumps. But anyway, that was the recap of last week, and I think for the month of November, make sure to check out Stephanie and I's monthly forecast. And if you're interested in getting your monthly horoscopes, you can join the Patreon again, like I mentioned, for your rising sign. It's catered to your rising sign. Um, there are a lot of sweet moments in November, but also some really, really crunchy ones as well. So there's going to be parts of your chart and parts of your life that you feel like are just like crashing down and burning. And then other parts of your life in your chart that you just feel like, oh, finally, I'm getting clarity, I'm getting the answers. But like I keep mentioning, and I'm going to keep mentioning this because I think we learned through repetition, October to December, it's not the time to start something new. And I don't think you want to. I honestly don't think a lot of people should because we are in the astrology of where we were at the beginning of this year. So you're going to feel like in certain parts of your life, more specifically the Taurus section of your chart, the Pisces section of your chart, okay? These areas you're going to feel like, "Oh, am I really back here? Am I really like going back in time?" Because Saturn and Neptune are going back into Pisces and finishing up that transit. Uranus on November 7th, we're going to get to that, is going back into Taurus and finishing up that transit. And so now it's like, okay, we got a little taste. We got a little taste of Uranus and Gemini. We got a little taste of Saturn and Neptune and Aries. These are masculine, yang expressions, right? Fire and air is about taking action. But now we're back into feminine nocturnal signs of Taurus and Pisces. This is about like recalibration and review and dreaming and being honest with our feelings. Like, is this how I want to move forward with my life? Because, like I've been telling my clients, once we get into February of 2026, and it's going to be the Lunar New Year, it's going to be the year of the fire horse, everything is going to feel like it's moving really fucking fast. And you're going to be like, what the hell? Um, and there's going to be so much fire in the air. So let's start off the week. Like November 3rd, Mars and Scorpio will trine Neptune retrograde in Pisces at 29 degrees, the anaretic degree. So Mars and Scorpio and Neptune and Pisces are at the anaretic degree, which I call the crashing out degree, to be honest with you. This is like the extinction burst. The extinction burst is a psychological term when something is about to like die metaphorically, and it's like, oh my God, we have to like finish this out, right? So Mars and Scorpio, I like using Mars and Scorpio as a way to like transmute our trauma and our like history of abuse or in the ways in which we felt like we had to survive to taking action on thriving, like letting go of this victim story. Because unfortunately, the shadow aspect of Mars and Scorpio is the victim narrative of like, a good example of this is Taylor Swift. Like, okay, don't come after me if you're a Swiftie because I love her music from Reputation to Midnights. I can get on board with that. But this trad wife thing that she's doing with Travis Kelce, like, I can't. But the reason why so many people were on board with her Mars and Scorpio for a really long time was that she like took her power back. Like she like re-recorded all of her music after what's his name, Scooter Braun basically stole the rights to her music. She took that um like feeling defeated into her like revenge arc, but like everyone was on board with that. She took the stories of her past relationships and like used that energy to create this music. Okay. That's the best way to use Mars and Scorpio energy. And then trine to Neptune and Pisces, it's like, okay, what dreams, what is my imagination, what sorts of things can I really bring into the physical form, what can I like make manifest, what can I make real. This is a good day to also do some healing work, see a therapist, get like Reiki or go to a bathhouse, work with water energy, cry. But this is a day to like really take action on some of like the latent imagination and dream world that you've been kind of sitting on. Okay. And then November 4th, remember, we're in a waxing phase of the moon. A lot of energy is starting to build up around this time. Your feelings might be at a fever pitch. November 4th, Mars is in Sagittarius, okay? Mars is the planet. Okay, this is like astrology basic 101. Mars is a hot and dry planet. When it's in a diurnal expression of like Sagittarius, a hot and dry sign, this is like the risk-taking, the unhinged, chaotic, fun expression of Mars when Mars is in Sagittarius. This is courageous. This is taking risks. This is like taking action based on your faith and your belief systems, right? And when Mars ingresses into Sagittarius, its first aspect is going to be that opposition to Uranus retrograde in Gemini at 0 degrees. So think back to what happened just recently on October 28th, I believe, when Mercury was opposing that Uranus. Now Mars is activating it. Now, this could be a day where a lot of news stories, especially around Sudan, what happens in Sudan comes into the like world news. We're talking about mundane astrology, which is world news, because that was really when people started to talk about what was going on in Sudan, and now Mars is activating it. So I don't know if they're going to have like another wave of like hopefully not like brutality because Mars is the planet of it's the god of war and also Uranus, like I said, is it's a transit about revolution and change. And so like revolution and change for who, right? So on the people who are holding on to their power, they're going to keep using violence as a tool to hold their power. Also, the ceasefire in Gaza, like that never really held up. There's still bombing. They're still bombing. So, I'm just saying this to prepare yourself because this is like the ways in which the Uranus opposite opposition can like manifest. How I would use this energy, because a lot of people, yes, they think of Mars as the planet of war, but it's also like taking action on your desire. And Sagittarius is a very optimistic sign. It's about our beliefs and our faith. And, you know, It's ruled by Jupiter. Um, Opposite Uranus and Gemini, this could be a great day to just like take action on what you believe in. And because it's an opposition, this could be like speaking out, taking action, doing a direct action for the first time in your life. Obviously, like, please take precautions. Don't do anything that's going to be that dangerous, you know? But when you're going up against um, a militarized state that is inherently violent, your opposition is going to see as a threat. They're gonna resist you with also that same force. So Uranus is also like the planet of innovation. So being using your activism in ways that are also like disruptive but unpredictable. Like you could embody that Uranus energy. Thinking outside the box. Uranus and Gemini is also about news, social media, using like communication in ways that are different, you know? And again, Mercury just opposed Uranus. So I saw a wave of people that had never spoken about Sudan starting to speak about Sudan and like boycotting the UAE. That's a very good Mercury opposing Uranus opposition, the way to use that transit. So be careful around this day, please, because you could be prone to accidents, especially if you are, let's say, a Sagittarius sun, moon, or rising. That means that, let's say you have like an early degree Sagittarius sun, moon, or rising, that Mars would be conjunct those placements. And that is a signature of maybe getting burned or getting into an accident. So please be careful to all of you, but to everybody, be careful because that's a very contentious energy. And this is also the day of the New York City mayor election. So you could go out there and vote for. I'm going to say who I think you should vote for, which is Zoran Mamdani. I don't think you should vote for a predator like Andrew Cuomo. He is garbage and yeah, we need change. So like interestingly enough, I think it's interesting that on the day of the New York City mayor election that this is the transit, right? On November 5th, this is our first lunation of the month. It is a full moon in Taurus at 13 degrees, and this happens at 8:19 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm going to share my screen so we can look at this together. Um, and I'm so glad that this is helpful for so many people who are just learning astrology. That's like my one goal. Okay, so go out and look at the full moon. This was the first assignment for my students because the first class was the full moon in Aries, and I said, go outside, look at the full moon, talk to the full moon, see how you feel around the full moon. The moon has a gravitational pull on the oceans of the earth. We are 75% water. So anyway, here is the exalted moon in Taurus. I love me an exalted moon in Taurus. And it's opposing the sister sign of Scorpio at 13 degrees. So if you have placements in and around 13, let's say 10 to, I use a tight orb. So that's the degrees, right? Like 10 to 16 degrees of the fixed signs. The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Then you will be feeling this full moon. So like for example, I have my moon and Venus in Aquarius and my Jupiter in Scorpio. So I'm gonna be feeling this full moon. Um, so this full moon is a fruition moment. It might be something that you seeded at the new moon in Libra. That new moon in Libra was, when was that? That was October 21st. October 21st, there was a new moon in Libra at 28 degrees. And look at this. The ruler of this full moon is Venus at 28 degrees. So there was something around that new moon in Libra, right? There was a seeding moment, and Venus was co-present there, the ruler of that new moon. And now Venus in its domicile is at that new moon degree. It's like activating that point. So maybe you set intentions to like find your people, right? You were trying to find your comrades who have aligned values. And now, around this full moon, you've met those people. You're investing your time in relationship, right? Scorpio and Taurus axis is about like our embodiment, what is physical and what is non-physical, what is detachment. So Scorpio is about detachment. It's about like decomposition and allowing, like, if you know, in the northern hemisphere, this is a time of year where the leaves fall off the tree and they start to rot and die, and that becomes the fertile soil for the springtime. And then Taurus is like the flower, like what is embodied, what is like physical. It's also about health and food and all those things that are earthly. So I do think it's interesting that around this time, November 5th, I did see a recent news article that said that a judge had blocked Trump from, or like the judge ordered the SNAP benefits to continue, even though federal workers weren't being paid. And so this is a really beautiful manifestation of this full moon in Taurus, um, helping people still be fed while this government is like shut down. I think the government shutdown is like on purpose, to be honest with you. What I love about what I'm seeing is even though the government is shut down, technically, so many people are offering their time, they're donating food, they're starting food fridges and food banks and donating food and helping people. Like, oh my God, I'm so emotional. I'm just like, see, this is the people that I believe in. This is humanity. It's so beautiful to witness. And we really do save each other. Like we really do help each other. I have not seen, and maybe that's not like my algorithm or whatever, but I have not seen anybody not like say anything about, helping people during this time. Like 40 million people were in danger of losing their SNAP benefits in November 1st, which was yesterday. And so I think this is the beautiful manifestation of the full moon in Taurus and the ruler being Venus, which just came off its square from Jupiter. That 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 transit or was on November 2nd, which is the day that I'm filming. And when the two benefics come together in any capacity, it's like an abundance of something, right? In a square, it's like, okay, overindulgence, overabundance of care and giving. And while the square could have been a manifestation of the US government obviously not paying its employees. But what I've seen from this transit from regular people is people helping, right? It was just so beautiful. I was like, I love when astrology is like positive. So yeah, Venus just came off that square to Jupiter. And this is why it's also important to understand like aspects, because when an aspect is like applying, so when Venus was applying to that square to Jupiter, that's when the energy is building. And then when it gets to the climax is the actual exact square, which is today, versus when it's separating, the energy is kind of like, you know, dissipating. That's why I keep saying like when I'm differentiating the aspects, I'm like it's applying to a square versus separating to a square. It's applying to an opposition versus separating from an opposition. So this full moon is at the climax, at the peak, at the exact opposition. And then as the week goes on, we're going to a waning phase of the moon when the moon is separating from its opposition to the sun. I just feel like teaching, like I'm in my professor era, so um, don't mind me. So also embedded in this full moon is that Mars Uranus opposition as well, because this is like the day after that exact opposition. So it's kind of like embedded in this full moon. So again, there still is this element of surprise, this element of like, boom. And I'm sorry I'm using that boom, but like again, like usually when Mars and Uranus come together, there could be some violent moment, there could be some explosion, there could be some attack, there could be some something. And the US, the United States of America, is a Sagittarius rising, and it does have Uranus natally in its chart. The USA is going through its Uranus return. Okay, so moving right along, I feel like this week's forecast is going to be long because there's a lot going on, you know? On November 6th, Venus will enter Scorpio, and now Venus goes from its domicile of Libra to its detriment in Scorpio. So when Venus was in Libra, this was like Venus loving this sign. Venus, and Libra is the sign of the scales. It's the only zodiac sign that is a non-animate object or animal. And so when Venus is in Libra, it's a very moderate, very balanced, very diplomatic. And so the shadow aspect of that is people pleasing. It's like, oh, I'm gonna just like be nice because you know those people that you meet that are nice, but they're not actually kind people. They're just like fake as fuck. That's also like my gripe with Libras. There's just fake sometimes. However, when Venus goes into Scorpio, Scorpio is ruled by Mars. This Venus does not give a fuck. Okay? Which is why Venus is in detriment because Venus wants to have like agreement. Venus wants to be in union. Venus wants to be like this like attractive, very agreeable situation, Venus in its domicile of Libra. However, Venus and Scorpio is more like I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna do what my desire is. I'm going to literally not care what you think. Venus and Scorpio is also a little bit more like it could the shadow aspect. I don't know if this is a shadow aspect, but could be more obsessive, could be more like not wanting to let go of a past relationships type of situation. This could be a more jealous, like, why do you get that thing and I don't get that thing? But I personally like Venus and Scorpio. I don't like Venus and Libra people. I'm sorry. Because planets in their domicile can be like the Nepo babies of the Essential Dignities 101. I'm actually next tomorrow's class, I'm teaching Essential Dignities, and I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that planets in their domicile are the Nepo babies of the Essential Dignity scheme. Um, yeah, so the same day on November 6th, Mars in Sagittarius will sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 1 degree. And the best way to use this transit is to, again, take action on your belief systems, be optimistic, take action on like what you've always wanted to do. Sagittarius is the adventurer, is the explorer, is the archetype of trial and error. And like the journey is the point, not the destination. And when it's sextile to Pluto and Aquarius, this could be a great signature of taking direct actions, doing some type of protest or organizing or showing up on social media and like helping people like with the CTA, a call to action, because there's certain content creators that give information, right? Teach, but there's rarely a lot of people that direct people into taking direct action. Like you could be doing this or you can be doing that, you know? So that's a good way to use that energy. November 7th, Venus in Scorpio will square Pluto in Aquarius at 1 degree, and the same day Uranus will retrograde back into Taurus. So when Venus squares Pluto, this could be like power dynamics. This could be in the like news stories we can hear of abuses of power, essay, or you know, for example, like Cuomo is a sexual predator. He's harassed like 13 women. And this is a very Venus and Scorpio square Pluto and Aquarius news story, but his lawyers got the gynecological records of his victims. Like that's the kind of like power dynamics that I'm talking about. And in medical astrology, Scorpio rules over the sexual organs, you know, the reproductive organs, and Pluto is the god of the underworld. How I would use this energy is to stand up to your oppressor, stand up to the bully. This day could be also a day when like more Epstein victims come out and survivors. More survivor stories could come out that we weren't even privy to. But something secret, something in the underworld is coming out at this time. But again, I would use this day to like stand up to a bully, ask for a raise that literally you've been like thinking about, but you were too scared to, because Venus is also about value and worth. Um, and this would also be related to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Now, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. This is an 8-year transit, and now Uranus is back here finishing up this transit. You're kind of like tying up loose ends for the last time, because Uranus is going to be in Taurus until April of 2026. So Uranus again is the planet of awakening, revolution, disruption, change, innovation in Taurus, which is like the slowest moving sign. Taurus is about the earth, embodiment, money, food, whatever comes physically from the earth, right? So during this time, we saw Bitcoin, the disruption in the money industry through technology. This is also when we saw like fake food. Beyond Meat is when it came out during this time, like genetically modified food. But also in your personal life, whatever your Taurus whole sign house is, you've been wanting to change something. You've been called to change, you know? If you're a Taurus rising, you might have had a whole like upheaval of your physical body. Maybe you decided to exercise for the first time or go on some like diet, you know, maybe some of y'all like got pregnant during this time. Something about your physical body changed since 2018. And so you want to look back at your longer 8-year transit of Uranus and Taurus, because this is like the last licks. Do people still say that phrase, the last licks? Um, and then on November 9th, Mercury stations retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So think back to around the new moon, right? It was the new moon where it was starting the pre-shadow. My brain literally cannot fit anything else, so I have to like look all these things up. Yes, October 21st was the pre-shadow. So from October 21st until November 9th, your Mercury retrograde story officially began. That was the pre-shadow. That was 20 degrees of Scorpio. So the Mercury retrograde goes from 20 degrees of Scorpio to 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So Mercury is going between two signs. Mercury in Scorpio is the most nonverbal Mercury. It's about like observing, it's doing things in secret, not necessarily telling people what you're doing, right? It could be more investigative work, like digging deep, going into the rabbit holes. And then when it goes into Sagittarius, this is like Mercury is in its detriment in Sagittarius. This is like the shadow side of this could be like preaching and being dogmatic and being like, I know everything, right? Do you all know Mercury and Sagittarius people? They could be some of the most annoying people, but also they could be the funniest people. And so the way to use Mercury and Sagittarius is being optimistic and reminding people of like what the fight is for. Because a lot of people are getting desperate out in these streets, you know, reminding people like we're all being guided by a bigger force and, you know, everything happens for a reason. I don't know if people like hearing that, but looking at your Scorpio house and your Sagittarius house can also help you understand what your Mercury retrograde story might be. Like, for example, I shared last week that my parents bought this car that they have during a Mercury retrograde, and every Mercury retrograde, without fail, something happens. And so, as I was driving last week, the engine was starting to fail. Thank God it was still working, it just wasn't accelerating. And so, then my parents had to get it fixed. And so when they brought it to the Hyundai dealership, they were like, "Oh, but you have this problem, you have this problem, you have this problem." And it kind of like opened up, you know, that's Mercury and Scorpio too. It's like, "Oh my God, we didn't realize that there were all these problems." And so, like, look at what's been going on since October 21st, because that could also give you clues as to like what you're reviewing and what, when Mercury goes retrograde, oh, okay, are we going to spend money on this? Like, are we going to spend money fixing this car or is it time to get a new one? Also, Mercury rules three things: communication, contracts, and commerce. So if you're a business owner, you might want to like look at your contracts that you have, or, and that's why they say like you have to live your life, but try not to sign contracts during a retrograde because you might have to like go back on them. But yeah, so anyway, I feel like this one forecast is like an hour long. Because it's a busy week. Like the first week of November, there's a lot going on. There's going to be a lot of news stories. There's going to be a lot of there's also a lot of planets changing signs this month. Saturn is stationing direct at the end of the month. Venus is changing signs twice. It's going from Scorpio to Sagittarius. And yeah, you know, I honestly like appreciate all of you so much. Again, like I just want to thank everybody for supporting my work, leaving comments, sharing my page. It's been growing, and I set out to do these weekly astrology forecasts at the beginning of the year because I needed a discipline to do something every week. And my channel has grown like exponentially. I think I had like 500 followers at the beginning of this year, and now we're almost at 2,000. Like, oh my gosh. Um, and I'm just so grateful because this is exactly what I've always wished to be doing, was to be my own boss and to be talking about things that like interest me. I think what I said last week, wait, I wrote this idea down. That was the first time I said that, by the way. I wrote, what did I write? And maybe like going to the future, I want to do like maybe a live stream of this um weekly forecast to get some like live interaction with all of you. Where did I write that down? I think I wrote something like, oh, the weekly astrology forecast, the intersection of culture, politics, and the news, and how to use astrology to time your best life. Dun da da. So, oh my gosh, I love you so much. I will see you next week. Have a beautiful week. And also remember to take care of yourself, be careful. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.